It's Wednesday, my dudes.
It is Wednesday, my dudes.
Welcome back to another episode of the Motivating Force podcast. I'm Josue, an aspiring Marine Corps officer. I'm currently finishing up my bachelor's degree in criminal justice and finishing up ROTC. Joining me as always, we have Justin, a fantastic motivational leader who's always excited to share wonderful topics with all of our listeners. Today, we're talking about the Mandela Effect, and I'm sure you've heard of it, or have you? Okay, so this theory, right, is going to contradict with what we said on Monday's episode, where you shouldn't expect a YouTube video to tell you the answer to everything and believe it 100%, right? We have the answer for this. The Mandela Effect, right, 100% truth, is the multiverse. We live in the multiverse.
Or is it?
Well, no. Okay, so the theory is that, I'm sure people are familiar with this one, is that there are things that we believe to be true a certain way, but then when we go double check it, it's not that way, right? This was popularized or coined by this lady that she and her couple friends, they had this understanding that they believed that they witnessed Nelson Mandela, which was the president in Africa, or South Africa.
Yes.
They remembered vividly seeing his funeral on television, 1980s, right? But we all know that he became president and was the leader for the majority of the 90s, where he ended up dying, right? So they had this collective memory of seeing this person die, right? Now we're going to talk about this because there's many examples that we can go into later where you're going to think something is a certain way when really it wasn't.
Yeah, that's where the whole phrase is actually coined. Her name was Fiona Broome, and she, exactly that, the Nelson Mandela had passed away in the 80s in prison, and he most certainly did not, as we all know. But when her and her friends had kind of thought that that's what had happened, she wanted further to do research on it and found more people who had the same impression. And that started the idea of the Mandela Effect, named after him.
And this idea is going into like conspiracy theory-esque conversations, because there are legit scientists that are doing research on the multiverse, and this is an actual study that they're trying to do, and parallel universes or timelines, whatever you want to call them. And the theory behind the Mandela Effect is that the universes that are parallel to us, there's some points that we're kind of remembering their timeline or events that have happened in another timeline, and that's why we can wholeheartedly believe that something happened when it really didn't.
Yeah, and one of the terms that they use for this is called confabulation.
Well, that sounds confabulous.
It sure does. I love that word. It's basically the concept of honest lying. And it has to do with filling in gaps in your memory to complete a story with fabricated details. So this is where we see that. We see these little jumps or things that don't really line up well, but we believe them. And some of this being on some more like common things that we all take our collective experience, our learned experiences, and when we combine them together, people have come up and fabricated the same details that we're missing out of these puzzles.
Yeah.
Which is why we can see this phenomenon with like that collective memory, and where we can see some of these Mandela effects and really kind of have some fun with it.
I wanted to make a clear point that, yeah, this episode's about the Mandela Effect, but what we're really going to be doing is going in depth on like the human psyche and psychological reasons why people have gone to the conclusion of thinking it's the Mandela Effect.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, they've just coined the term of this phenomena, but we're really going into a little bit of how the brain works and why it's such a crazy thing to grasp.
I mean, unless if it is true that we do jump between parallel universes, because then there's nothing to grasp. That's how it really is. That's how we remember it. because that's what happened until we're in the universe we're in now.
Well, speaking of parallel universes, I can go down a rabbit hole listening to people tell those stories of like how they went down a road and then there was a shop that was there and then they forgot something and went back and the shop wasn't there. It's crazy.
Parallel universes or the Matrix? Which one are we in?
Schizophrenics.
Ooh, that's true.
Okay, so to go back to your confabulous word confabulation, right? There's this research that was done called the Diess-Roediger-McDermott paradigm, right? And this was something to do with like those filler words or filler memories that your brain kind of puts out. And this is kind of like a memory test situation where they kind of they flash words in front of people, right? So let's say they put the word bed, and then they flash the word pillow, and then the word blankets. Then when they asked the people to recall what the list was, they put in words that weren't even on the list or that didn't flash in front of them, like sleep. But this is because you're putting words that are relative in a group. And the psychological term for that is that your brain puts these things in schemas, something like that. And it's kind of grouping topics together so then it's easier for your brain to pull them when you need to remember something. So like sports is all going to be in one schema. Anything relating to sports, video games is another one, movies, historical facts is all going to be grouped together. So when you're getting that like you're trying to recall what the list said, you know it has to do with sleep. So you're going to throw out sleep. But it wasn't there. But you believed that was a word that you saw.
Fun fact on that too, when we talk about schemas, is you can use this to your advantage if you guys actually want to spend some time looking into that, because this is how people do like research. Like for some of you guys who are still in school or just trying to retain more information, when you understand how schemas work, you can actually study in a way that helps you retain more. And that's by not remembering the content, but making it relative in context.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's pretty good. It's like the fill in the blank situations that you're just like, well, I know it's relative to this topic, so it has to be one of these three things, for example.
Yeah. It's like writing essays. That's why sometimes how, I was able to help you out every once in a while there and writing some essays for...
Yeah, you gave me some great pointers.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, for some non-academic work where we were writing essays for fun. And
chill out.
Yeah,
You're giving away too much.
Okay. Just studying different material and being able to just pull from schemas and using that information, that context can take you really far.
Yeah.
And especially when you slap on the appearance of confidence, it can take you really far.
Yeah, and this is something that I'm very interested in now as an adult, right? Because when I first heard of the Mandela Effect, I was a younger adolescent, right? So thinking, like studying psychology and all that wasn't too popular in my group of friends, let's just put it that way. But I did know people that went on to college and would study psychology. And I was like, what's wrong with these people, right? But then now knowing as an adult how we still, in 2021, don't know jack about the human brain, right? So that when I'm thinking the Mandela Effect, I'm like, oh yeah, it's so possible that it's parallel universes or alternate timelines that I'm remembering. I can see that more of a possibility, right? Where it's just like the schema thing was completely new to me when I was doing the research, like we were telling you we do. And the way like your mind subconsciously separates things like that, it was fascinating.
And speaking about psychology, studying that, psychological research and neuroscience studies, they actually indicate that memory is more of a reconstructive process. So keep that in mind, right? It's not a construction or it's not an absorbency, it's a reconstruction. So a lot of things you remember is things that your brain actually works on for a while. It's not something right away.
Yeah. Like if I were to ask the people listening to this right now, can you tell me what color the intro was? Because it was blue. No, I'm just kidding. Imagine something like that, because you're relating with all the previous videos that you've seen because you watched every one, that you've seen that intro so many times, and then one changes, possibly, I don't know, then you're going to go, wait, no, that was the same. It was the same as all the other ones because you're kind of relating it or having that false memory. Your brain's kind of like, it's the same. You don't need to really remember it. So when you're thinking about it now, you're like trying to imagine it, but it's kind of reconstructing this false narrative. Because then now if you picture it as blue, you can see it as blue.
And for some of you guys who went back to the intro, I hope you found the right spot. It's exactly that. So when that context stays 100% the same, but some of that content changes, that's when you can start getting those issues. And a lot of things we see in the Mandela Effect is just very subtle changes. And this is where it kind of annoyed me, right? Because I kind of went online when we were talking about this, and I took some of those Mandela Effect quizzes and whatnot. And it's kind of upsetting because it's really small details, but a lot of times it's about really iconic things. So you would like to think that you would have a full memory of it. And then next thing you know, the Monopoly guy does not, in fact, wear a monocle.
That's exactly what I was going to pull out because I have a list here, but the Monopoly guy, when you said that, I was like, and I heard some guy explain how that is. We assume that the Monopoly guy sticking out the Monopoly O has a monocle, right? But that's because we kind of associate monocles to people with that money and influence and like the top hat, you know. And whereas the Einstein Bagels guys, they have monocles.
Right.
So how is it so hard to assume or just kind of like have an error in your memory that the Monopoly guy also has a monocle?
Right. It's filling in that context. If you're wearing a suit and a top hat and you're that 60s theme, what fits better than having the monocle on? You see that and you're like, that it looks better. It looks right.
Yeah. But then you also get things like Kit Kat, where the logo, it's Kit, right? KIT hyphen KAT. It doesn't have a hyphen, but you can see it. It makes sense. Every other word that you do like that, or every other like logo that you design like that would have a hyphen, when in reality it doesn't. And then that's kind of like, I could have swore it had that. And then you start going, well, all my life I saw it that way. So then you're kind of putting this false narrative that you're coming from a different timeline or like another universe. What's going on?
Some people take it that far. Yeah.
So there's another definition that I pulled out straight from a psychology textbook. Just kidding. It's on false memory. And it says that in psychology, a false memory is a phenomenon where a person recalls something that did not happen or recalls it differently from the way it actually happened. Suggestibility, so being gullible, activation of associated information, which is what we talked about, or the incorporation of misinformation, and source misattribution, which I'm going to talk about in a little bit, have been suggested to be several mechanisms underlying a variety of types of false memory phenomena. So, for example, that source misattribution, also known as source monitoring errors, right? So if I'm over here, I'm going to tell you this story about when we were in middle school together. I can go on giving you specifics and details of something that never really happened. Like I'm pulling it out of my butt and I'm telling you this false story or this false memory. I can get you to believe that it actually happened. So then, like you said, you're reconstructing this memory that never happened. But then you're going to believe it. So it's crazy that that false memory can go as far to you like getting aggravated or mad because it never really happened. And that's the whole conversation about the Mandela Effect. I just think it's pretty cool that I can convince somebody to believe a story or a memory in their life that never happened, all due to, let's say, like their imagination. Because they can see the scenario actually happening, and I'm telling you it did, I can get you to believe that. It's crazy about like the human mind and how it puts together these false narratives.
See, it's interesting when you take that approach with it, because I didn't even think about really the whole manipulative side to it. But there's obviously that, which is kind of a new thought process there for me on it. But no, that's a really good point. And I think that we probably use that a lot more than we think. and maybe in the sense of confabulation, honest lying.
Yeah.
Whereas like, because you've known me so long and say, now at this point, obviously, I'm different at 26 than I was at 14. I have a whole different, character value to myself, obviously, as everybody should. But you see how I am now, and you'll relate that to some of your memories in the past when you're trying to recall them. And then what's going to happen is those memories in the past are going to change because you're going to be basing it off of the character you see now.
Or here, another one, the activated of associated information, not the one I wanted to pick out, the incorporation of misinformation. So let's say we're all hanging out and we're listening to music. Queen comes on, right? We're the champions. I want to ask you, okay, well, you probably already know how this ends. How does the song end?
I never played sports, so that's not a song I'm super familiar with, to be honest with you.
Okay, never mind. For you, sports.
For the average person or the normal person.
Yeah, so we are the champions. I'm pretty sure you can envision singing it in your head or sing it out loud right now. You'll tend to go, we are the champions of the world, right? You've heard of that. That's not how the song ends. So everybody or I don't want to say everybody. There's a lot of people that believe that's how the song ends. So then when he sings that last and final, we are the champions, they'll go of the world, but it never happened. And it's like this group collective memory. That's false.
See, that's funny though, because if you envision that, did you fall for that?
Oh yeah.
Did you think
my entire life I've believed that it's of the world? So I'm pretty sure there's a line throughout the song that says it, but the actual end of the song is "We are the champions." Period.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Because I was gonna say, like, then with that envisionment, like, that's crazy with the imagination because you would have pictured it with lyrics playing through right in his voice in some type of like context.
Yeah.
With still music going on in the background, like your mind filled in that spot.
Yeah, it fills it in, and also because like we are the champions, it's kind of like the build up, and then of the world is like this high note that it's like this is the peak of the song, and then that's how you want it to end. So then when you're imagining it now where it's just we are the champions, you get the build up and nothing.
So with hindsight being 2020, do we call him out on that and tell him he could have perfected those lyrics?
That's actually a topic of discussion that people argue about. Should it have kept going or should it have just stopped?
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So we can see where we can, I guess we can improve things by filling in those gaps and taking advantage of what's not there.
I guess, but then there's also examples like childhood books, right? Did you read the Berenstain Bears when you were smaller? I did. I had the entire collection. And this is why this is the one that aggravates me. Well, there's two that really aggravate me. It's this one, right? Because it's called the Berenstain Bears. That's probably the most popular one when it goes around the Mandela Effect circles. Berenstain, not Berenstein.
Oh, but see, then that's interesting because that's more of like the common last name.
Yeah, when you get like the Epstein.
Bernstein. It's E-I-N.
Yeah. But it's Berenstain. So is it that it was mispronounced to me as a child or everybody else that fell for this? Or what's going on with that one?
Right. What got you on the second one? What was the second most absurd one?
The other one that kind of, bothered me. Oscar Mayer Wiener, right? There was even songs, Oscar Mayer Wiener.
Mm-hmm. My baloney has a first name.
Yeah.
It's M-A-E-R.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oscar Mayer Wiener.
Ah.
It's not Oscar Mayer. Oof. Heated.
That's the way you pronounce it too, though, right? You pronounce it Oscar Mayer. Oscar Mayer? I don't even know.
You
now.
see why it's...
Whoa.
Yeah. The perfect example. If you had to pick one, which one would you say?
I don't know now. I guess you say like Oscar Mayer.
Yeah, I would still say Oscar Mayer.
Right.
But it's Oscar Mayer. And I'm sure we're going to be putting up like the words for each one that we're saying so that everybody knows what the hell the correct word is for all of these. Okay, I'll hit you with two more examples. So Pikachu, right, from Pokemon. The end of his tail, right? The little like... The end of it, what color is it?
Well, it's not black.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But people so this one's
see that
cool.
Picture with the black end, yeah.
Yeah, but that's due to like that, relating it to associated information. So we see the ends of his ears, or her ears, Pikachu's ears, that have the black tips. So we kind of just associate that design to go into the tail as well, whale, when we imagine what Pikachu looks like, when really it's just a yellow tail. And then another one, Curious George, same situation, does not have a tail.
Right, but because he's a monkey,
We think that he has a tail.
Okay. So it's really Mandela Effect can play a lot into just the relativity.
So the Mandela Effect, what it is, it's just a bunch of mind games. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
your brain making you think it's one way when it's really not. Because you're trying to fill in the blanks of something from your childhood, in my example, that I haven't seen recently. So when I get hit with the, hey, what is it, Berenstain or Berenstein? I go Berenstein because I'm trying to call back, and that's familiar, like you said. So Berenstein's more common, but really it's Berenstein or Berenstain. The heck? Berenstain. But you see, so it's like they're pulling things from deep in your memory.
Okay, I gotcha. So is that like why this coffee tastes so good? Because it's in a nice solid cup, very well built, very well established.
I think so. If you really look at like the color of the mug, I think it adds to the taste profile.
Okay. Oh, maybe why it tastes so good too is because there's no longer coffee in this mug and it's just Bang energy. Relativity. But hey, you know what's not a mind game with the Mandela Effect?
What is it?
Some of that applicable research that's done with that there is taking the same principles of using your biases and things that just make sense and being on the stand, on trial as an eyewitness, giving a testimony.
Oh, I remember you were going to hit me with this. Yeah, this is interesting.
Yeah, so another thing to disprove on that is the myth that eyewitness testimony is one of the most like tried and true forms of evidence because you were there for it, so your word is going to mean a lot. And in court, it actually is one of the most unreliable forms of evidence. Yeah. And unfortunately,
well,
it used to be.
I was going to say the Salem witch trials was solely on word of mouth.
Yeah.
Or eyewitnesses.
Yeah. It used to be a very reliable form because we think consciously, like, I mean, he was there. If he said that dude shot that dude, I mean, come on, right? What are you going to tell him? That didn't happen. He was there. Well, guess what? Yeah, sometimes that didn't happen.
Yeah.
And we saw this come to fruition back when forensic DNA testing became available.
Well, real quick before you get into that, that's kind of also why police have body cams now, because we can no longer take, men in uniform, men and women in uniform, they're kind of word of mouth.
Right, for the same reason that
accounts.
you can't take just, people walking down the street.
Yeah.
It's the same thing that applies.
Yeah.
And when we look at forensic DNA testing, when that first became a thing, started rolling out, it overturned a lot of wrongful convictions with that type of analysis on like evidence and whatnot. And for the people who were exonerated due to the up and coming forensic DNA testing, 75% plus of those exonerations were related to cases where their conviction was based off of eyewitness reports.
That's crazy.
80%, man. Well, over 75%, which makes me go straight to 80. But, I said over 75, so I went, 80. Got it.
Mandela Effect.
Yeah.
Separate universe, you said 80.
Yeah, exactly. So that's a huge number. Like, you'd expect to see maybe like 20% would be like reasonable. Like, it wasn't that guy. It's his twin brother or something, right?
Yeah, just a couple of mistakes, but if it's somebody saying they witnessed it and they're calling the wrong person?
Yeah.
Come on.
And for something as serious as like murder, I mean, you would want to think that you're very confident in what you're about to say or very confident in what you saw. I mean, that's a really traumatic experience.
Speaking of traumatic, there's also rape. Rape victims call out the wrong people a lot of times.
Right. And what's worse? I mean, again, traumatic, and that's intimate. That's up close. I mean, how can you tell somebody that they called out the wrong person when that person's like on them, you know?
Yeah.
But it happens. So it's interesting when you take that perspective of the Mandela effect and we apply it to these fun and cute things or things that can just really frustrate you. And the realistic side of that research is, one, that manipulation factor that you can use on people, and two, it can get a lot of people in trouble.
Yeah. So if you're going to take anything from this episode, just take the idea or the point of don't believe in the Mandela effect and don't believe in anything you think you remember.
I mean, it should make you question a lot of things you remember. That's for sure. But yeah, that's exactly it. With that being that reconstructive process for what you do remember, it's always good to touch up on things. It's always good to refresh yourself. And especially when it's been a while, for you to come out and say things and speak on a topic. And especially true if you're an expert in a field for something. Sometimes it's good to go back to the basics and kind of remember where some of these principles started, where some of these fundamentals come from. Because you can get so far away from that, which is great for research, you should, but you don't want to lose sight of the ground you're standing on, right?
Yeah, and I was going to say also kind of a way to put that frustration and anger on point as well. Don't be so quick to be like, but I believe it wholeheartedly and it's supposed to be true. You know, you could have just had a false memory. Understand that you don't even understand your brain. Like scientists, neuroscientists don't understand the way the mind works. So why do you think you believe this 100%? Like, why is it so difficult to understand that your mind can play tricks on you?
Yeah, and I should have really thought about this topic earlier because we had as people know, I'm a mechanic up at 535 Auto Care, Orlando, Florida.
Shout out.
Right. Only one of the best reviewed shops in Orlando. No big deal.
No big deal.
But we had a customer come in who was in a car accident, okay? So we had the car there, and
instead of going to the hospital?
Yeah. And all these cars, modern cars, come with a black box inside, kind of like how airplanes do. People are familiar with that. And it gives you all the information leading up to the crash about the vehicle anyways. Down to like the millisecond.
Yeah.
Okay. The kid, which is why the car got towed to us, because he didn't want to believe what another shop was telling him, what the dealership was telling him happened. And he, without the shadow of a doubt, said, my airbag deployed and it caused me to crash. Like the airbag hit me in the face. I swerved and the car crashed. Okay. So now if you're thinking of false deployment from an airbag, well, this can be an issue. People need to need to look into that.
That's
that
a
doesn't
lawsuit.
happen.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's also a safety issue for that manufacturer. Mm-hmm. And we're looking in the black box of the car, and he had swerved, apparently, hit something.
Lost traction, so it popped up with that.
Right.
Yeah. And
within, I think it was like 280 milliseconds of the impact sensor detecting collision, the airbag went off. Airbag activation came on because we have all that data there. So it was like, hey, man, I hate to break it to you, but like this 5-second window that you're talking about, an airbag coming out, and then because that takes time, right? The airbag's going to come out. You're going to swerve. You have to hit something at that point. We're talking a couple seconds here. It was like, no, in the matter of milliseconds, this is the course of action that actually happened in your car. So you already hit something, and then the airbag deployed, and he didn't like want to believe it.
So you're thinking that he's a victim of the Mandela effect, or he's just concussed?
I think it could be part of, well, of course, what we're talking about here, because that's not necessarily like a Mandela effect thing, but it is that false memory and the fact of that traumatic experience.
And he's believing it to be true 100%, when it does not make sense when you're showing him the evidence.
Yeah, because like there's no other cars involved, so mentally it's like, well, why would I have swerved into a guardrail when I'm just driving straight down a road? There's no reason for it. But that airbag deployed and hit me. Well, the airbag deploying must have happened first.
All right, so to take everything home from this point, wrap everything up per se, help us out, maybe this is the multiverse, and in another parallel universe, there's a version of this podcast that we are bigger than Joe Rogan. Who knows? But you can also help us in this current multiverse and this universe that we're in by subscribing and liking the video, sharing this with a lot of people, friends and family that are interested in conspiracy theories or just odd topics, whatever you want to call it. Don't believe everything to be true from the past. False memories are a thing. You can even be just gullible and believe in a story that isn't true. Suggestibility is possible. Remember to do research, like Justin was saying earlier. Always stay on top of the game. If you are in a medical field or like something that you have to be an expert on.
And if you guys swore that, we were bigger than Joe Rogan and we already had 100 million plus viewership, it's real easy for you to go down below, go to the links for our Facebook and Instagram and kind of verify how many followers we have. Because if it's not 100 million, I'll tell you what, you probably want to click that follow button.
Also, a huge shout out to Vespertine Apparel. You can go check them out. We're currently working out some kind of sponsorship thing so that we can have an affiliate code with them. As you can see, we were rocking that merch. If you haven't seen the video from 2 Sundays ago, I'm rocking a shirt that's probably the best material shirt that I've ever had. This awesome mug that we showed off earlier in the podcast. So go help them out. You can even use the promo code TAKEONESY until we get our own promo code.
Yeah, on top of that too, I'm taking a new venture into streaming. So I am going to be over on Twitch here shortly. Be on the lookout for that. We haven't really solidified anything yet. I'm still in the testing processes, but I've been having a great time with it. Obviously, my talking expertise here definitely allows me to talk into the void on Twitch. Do it very well. So, hey, it's a good idea. Maybe if you don't want to DM us or anything like that, or leave a comment here and you have something you want to talk about, head over to the Twitch channel. When we get that up and running, I'll be more than happy to have conversations with you guys. But if you're looking for more information, be sure to tune in Monday and Wednesday at 8 a.m. AST. It's when we drop all of our new videos. And until next time, go and get